OPEC agrees to cut oil production to about 10 million barrels a day in an historic effort to stabilize the market. Mexico, the last remaining holdoff, signed off on the deal over the weekend. Here to break this all down, our own Alan Newhouser, live in Washington, D.C. Alan, let's start things off with the numbers. In this dispute, it started between Saudi Arabia and Russia, rattled the markets, and then ultimately Mexico played into this as well. Break this down for us.
Sure, Brad. So this really illustrates how so many countries are needing to put skin in the game here to achieve these really large cuts, and just how much needs to be done because demand has dropped so much as a result of the response around the world to try to slow the spread of novel coronavirus. And there we're talking about travel restrictions, businesses and factories being idled, all of that leading to a slowdown of about 30% in the globe's oil consumption, and that's about anywhere from 27 to 30 million barrels per day. So we saw OPEC over the weekend reach this agreement of cuts of almost 10 million barrels per day, and to get that, this wide-ranging international group coming together, not just OPEC, but also OPEC Plus, the coalition that traditionally includes Russia, which is the world's #3 oil producer. And then, as you said at the top there, countries like Mexico and others also contributing to this. And at the same time, on the other side of the ledger, countries indicating that they will buy some of this cheap oil to help support some of that demand by filling up their strategic reserves. So expecting that commitment from the U.S. and other countries to help support the demand side while OPEC and others address the supply side here.
And President Trump spoke out after the meeting. What did he have to say?
President Trump's statements here it was not really clear at all what he was driving at. President Trump tweeted that OPEC Plus had actually been seeking cuts of 20 million barrels per day. I mean, we have it in black and white that OPEC Plus actually agreed to about 9.7 million barrels per day. The one thing that Trump may have been referring to is what might end up being the total amount of the cut once you include some additional countries that are not traditionally considered part of OPEC Plus. For example, the U.S. can't unilaterally order private companies here to start slowing production, but as a result of the low prices, a lot of companies here have just, because of those market forces, have had to lower their production. And you've seen that in all sorts of developed nations across the world. And that figure gets a little bit closer to 15 to 20 million barrels per day total. But really, that's not exactly the kind of top-down cut or production cut agreement of the type that we saw with OPEC. But if anything, it illustrates again just how much of a cut we may need to address the drop-off in consumption. And that might end up needing to be on the order of 20 or even more barrels per day to address the nosediving consumption as a result of coronavirus.
And how is this deal going to impact gas prices for consumers, Alan?
So no surprises here. Low oil prices do tend to lead to low gasoline prices. The thing about it is normally that is an economic impact that can kind of offset some of the economic damage that may come from low oil product prices, especially when the U.S. is in a situation like it's in now, where it's the world's top oil producer. And so low oil prices are painful for much of the U.S. economy. Now, normally that's offset because low prices mean cheaper energy costs, cheaper fuel costs, shipping is cheaper, travel. But of course, with the coronavirus, no one's going anywhere. So it's not like you're seeing people hitting the road or, with the exception of what folks are getting delivered at home, a huge increase in shipments or air travel, folks able to capitalize and sort of offset the impact of low oil prices. So yes, lower prices at the gas pump, well below $2 a gallon on average, according to Gas Buddy. But the benefits of that are pretty limited based on all the restrictions.
All right. Thanks so much to our own Alan Newhouser, live in Washington, D.C., energy and transportation reporter here at Cheddar. Thanks, Alan.